Welcome to Healing the Spirit, a space where we awaken our creativity, deepen our connections, and remember who we are through the lens of astrology, archetypes, and art making. I'm your host, Jonathan Coe. Hello everyone, welcome to January 2026 and welcome to Healing the Spirit. So in this episode, I'm going to share with you some insights and guidance about the astrology of the month ahead, as well as some messages and insights that came through as you walk your path of creative unfolding and spiritual maturity. I have a few announcements before we begin. The first one is that my books are open, so if this episode resonates with you and you feel that it would be beneficial to work more deeply with me on your chart, on any goals or dreams you may have for the coming year, and to also work with some energy tools, there are a couple ways to work with me. One is we can do a single session, or we can work within a 3-month mentorship container. I'll share more details at the end of this episode on the other side. If you are interested, stick around. And the second announcement is I have decided to experiment with Substack. So for those of you who don't know what Substack is, it's a platform where you can share long-form writing as well as audio or video content. And I've been playing around with this idea for a while because I do love the look and feel of Substack. And it's got this hybrid combination of being somewhat of a social media platform, but also a place where creators can have the option of offering access to content that is behind a paywall, and it gives readers and listeners the opportunity to support them. And I know some of you have been listening to the podcast for many, many years, and if that's you, I'm so deeply grateful for your attention and for your energy, for all the love that you've brought here energetically, verbally, and just by way of you spending time with me through the podcast. And if you would like to go deeper, I will be creating 1 to 2 bonus episodes each month and also share some essays. You will be the first to read some of my essays and maybe even some drafts that I will not be sharing anywhere else. So if that sounds exciting to you, if for $5 a month you would love to support the podcast, if you would love to receive additional resources, I encourage you to go over there and to support the work that goes into this podcast. Okay, let's get into the energy of the month. When I tuned into the energy of January 2026, I got this image of a cloud with building scaffolding underneath it. And when I felt into the sensation, there was this warm, relaxed, light sensation that is not only coming from the clouds themselves, but also from the scaffolding around it. I was tuning into this alchemy between the softness of the clouds, the amorphous, ever-changing quality of the clouds, and the sturdiness of the structure. To me, this is a reminder that when we orient towards softness, when we orient towards spaciousness, there's actually more that's available to us. There is this thought form that many of us have been indoctrinated into, that the only way to achieve our goals or to build the life that we want is through hard work and hustling. And that's not to say that there's no value in creating structures, but when we bring an attitude of relaxation and surrender towards life, while also not completely discounting that we have three-dimensional needs, that we have a body, that we have to work with our own physical body capacity, our own mental capacity, then something magical can really happen, right? January is a month where a lot of people like to plan their years. The holiday season is over, and many of us want to participate actively in creating the kinds of changes that we want to see in our lives. And as we head into January, there's a reminder here to not only work on realistic plans and creating habits, routines that can really support us, but also to give ourselves the space to really focus on our dreams and to not forget that you get to dream big as you approach this new block of time. I want to get into the nitty-gritty of the astrology as a way to give you a sense of the shape of the energetic current in the coming month. And throughout, I'll be sprinkling some insights on the transits as well as pointers on what you can focus on. So we begin the month on January 1st with the Sun in Capricorn sextiling the North Node in Pisces, and then Mercury in Sagittarius squaring Neptune in Pisces before Mercury leaves Sagittarius for the land of Capricorn. As always, I like to look at the first exact transit of the month because it's relevant. In astrology, the reason why we look at our birth charts as sources of inspiration and as a place that we can return to in moments of feeling confused or doubting our path is because the moment of conception, the very first moment when something starts, is significant. And this moment of conception or initiation tends to communicate something significant about what awaits us in the entire journey that is about to unfold. And because this is the first transit of the first month of the year, I tend to also believe there's significance here. The first transit is like the opening note of a piece of music, right? It gives us a sense of grounding into what is about to happen. First of all, this day, January 1st, is busy because there are 3 transits happening at the same time. It foreshadows a year that is going to be anything but boring. So let's first talk about Sun in Capricorn sextiling the North Node in Pisces. It's so funny because I keep wanting to say Neptune, and I think there is something about that that's true as well. Neptune is playing a very important role in the coming year, which we'll get to in a second. And I'm sure we'll continue to talk about the rest of the year. And yeah, but the first exact transit is not a Neptune transit. It's the Sun in Capricorn sextiling the North Node in Pisces. In my personal opinion, this is about as great of a transit as we can get for the start of the year. Capricorn Sun illuminates the importance of not only working hard, but working smart and working strategically. Whereas the North Node in Pisces is an encouragement to always remember that our dreams matter and to not forget the reason why we work at all. It brings to mind this saying of, if there's a will, there's a way. Capricorn and Pisces are both very mystical signs. Capricorn is symbolized by the sea goat, which signifies that it's not just about climbing the mountain. It's also about our ability and willingness to go deep into the collective unconscious. Meanwhile, Pisces is the last sign of the zodiac. Pisces occupies this liminal state between the end of one cycle and the start of another. I was born with a Capricorn stellium in my chart, and I know this from my own personal experience. Capricorn is not just about working hard and building stuff. Capricorn is also about connecting to the larger vision of the life that you're here to build. Capricorn is about honoring the deeper sense of what makes up our unconscious. It speaks to honoring where we come from. It speaks to honoring ancestral knowing and wisdom. It also speaks to building something that is actually sustainable on a day-to-day basis. It's not just about getting to the goal no matter what. It's about making sure that we also enjoy the journey. This is a really great year to get your ducks in a row, so to speak. I believe that your future self will really thank you if you take some time to reflect on what you would like to achieve and how you would like to feel while you're building towards that this year. Here's a suggestion that I like to give people who come to see me in one-on-one sessions that I feel really aligns with this transit, which is, don't plan based on the things that you don't know. Plan based on the things that you do know. One mistake that I see a lot of people making when they're planning is trying to make plans based on something they're still unsure about, that they still need more information to determine how they feel about that thing. And it might be helpful for you to, at the start of the year, ask yourself, what do I know with certainty in my body? What do I know beyond the shadow of a doubt? I'm going to give you a simple example here. Recently, someone came to me in a session and said, essentially, I'm paraphrasing here, that they want to move, but they're not sure where would be a good place for them to live in. And the guidance that came through was to actually really focus on planning for what they already know about the situation. So what I asked them was, do you like to travel? And this person really does. This person loves to travel, and I recommended to them to explore how they can create a schedule and create a budget that allows them to explore being in different places throughout the year. So in a way, it's not about focusing on trying to figure out where do I want to live next, but rather to focus on, I am going to explore the places that I know for sure I'm curious about. This may be a subtle or significant reframe depending on what it is that you are questioning in your own reality. But in any case, I think it's really helpful to anchor ourselves in the things that we know for sure. And as much as I love talking about expanding our capacity for living in and with the mystery of existence, I do find that when it comes to planning, it's not that helpful to plan around things that we still need more time to figure out. That actually the point of planning at all is to help us get from point A to point B, right? So if you are still not sure about where you want to take certain areas of your life, perhaps it's not about planning, but perhaps it's about giving yourself permission to have a little bit more space for exploration, for playfulness, and you can actually plan around that. You can plan to have more space, right? To create more of a sense of adventure and exploration in your day-to-day reality. The next transit that also happens on this very busy day is Mercury in Sagittarius squaring Neptune in Pisces. This is a year to cultivate clear communication, both with yourself and with others. With others, the advice here is to not say anything that you will regret later. With any squares, there is a tendency for a sense of frustration to come up, especially knowing that Mercury in Sagittarius is traditionally in detriment. So there is a quality of nebulousness that both Mercury and Neptune are in at the start of the year. This is a reminder that good intention doesn't cancel out negative impact. So if you do know at the start of the year there are any relationships in your life that are challenging or where there's potential for a lot of misunderstanding, maybe you haven't been seeing each other's perspectives for a while, notice the places where you rush into judgment rather than being curious about that person's perspective. And similarly, with yourself, there can be a tendency with this transit to doubt your own abilities, to doubt your own gifts, to minimize the impact that you have on your reality. I encourage you to identify the obvious symptoms when this downplaying is happening and to set yourself up with a protocol to snap out of this negative self-talk. This transit highlights the necessity of remembering the bigger picture. With Neptune transits in general, it's helpful to be mindful of, are there any knowledge gaps that is present here? If something comes up at the start of the year that bring up intense emotional reactions out of you or difficult feelings, I would recommend practicing creating space and asking questions rather than jumping into conclusions, both asking questions to people around you or to yourself. This is something that I feel is really helpful for us to cultivate as well. Curiosity towards our own experiences. It's easy for the mind, for the ego to immediately jump into past situations and how the situation that's unfolding in front of us is reminding us of what happened in the past. But this transit and all the challenges that it might bring is a reminder to give ourselves permission to not consider that what's happening in front of us is a repeat of the past. Get curious about the situation, because usually from that point, there's space for us to create different choices and to embody a different part of our identity, which will then help create a new reality. And then following that, starting the 3rd, we have the full moon in Cancer with the Sun in Capricorn pretty closely conjoining Venus and Mars in Capricorn, and also co-present with Mercury, also in Capricorn, followed by on the 6th, we have a Venus Cazimi in Capricorn. On the 7th, Venus will be making an exact conjunction with Mars in Capricorn. And then between the 9th and the 14th, we have a Mars Cazimi in Capricorn, and Venus, and then the Sun, Mars, and Mercury, in other words, all of the personal planets in Capricorn will oppose Jupiter in Cancer. They'll take turns opposing Jupiter in Cancer. Venus in Capricorn orients not only towards beauty, but also towards durability. whereas Mars in Capricorn has a natural propensity to strategize in order to achieve goals and dreams. And a combination of both Mars and Venus in Capricorn provides access to vigor and to enthusiasm for things that make life worthwhile. If you are familiar with your personal birth chart, my recommendation is for you to contemplate that area of life where you have Capricorn and to really think about what you are grateful for. Are there any accomplishments, any resources, or even skills in that area that you can bow to, that you can say, hey, I'm so grateful that I have this in my life? Practicing gratitude with intention and mindfulness can bring powerful reality shifts during a transit like this. Venus, Mars, and the Sun being in Capricorn brings a natural access to a sense of motivation, enthusiasm, hunger for achievement. And so it's good to counterbalance this with remembering why our efforts matter to us, what we want to achieve in the long term, which is something that Jupiter exalted in Cancer can help us do as well. The question here is, what do we want to nurture? A lot of the times, how we do something, how we orient towards a particular goal or project or relationship is just as important as the direction we're going into. The destination that a lot of people want to achieve or want to arrive at is usually not just some three-dimensional goal or achievement, right? What we usually want is some kind of inner transformation. What we're truly yearning for is a version of ourselves that can effortlessly and naturally achieve the things that resonate with us. So something you may want to focus on is, are there things in your life that are working incredibly well without you putting a lot of efforts into it? Especially if you want to work with your chart in this area that is governed by Cancer and Capricorn. Of course, this is also applicable for the rest of our lives. What are some of the things in your life that you can be grateful for, that perhaps you haven't had to struggle so much in this area, even if you do put some effort into it, right? When we think about Mars in Capricorn, Jupiter in Cancer, these are exalted planets. And so the things that you're grateful for may not be totally effortless. It may not feel like this was handed to you on a silver platter. And yet there's likely to be an element of you, even though you needed to put some level of effort into this, that situations have turned out favorably for you. Exalted planets can feel like they're under a lot of pressure to perform. And so practicing gratitude can provide a balm to that feeling of pressure and can help reframe us out of focusing on how challenging it is to have other people's expectations on our backs. This is something that I learned from the example and the life of my grandfather from my mom's side. My grandfather lived through wars and also a lot of political unrest. What I observe from looking at him is how much he walks around with very low expectations as to what he's entitled to in this lifetime. And this to me is something that is not natural to a lot of people, and certainly not something that we talk a lot about within this culture, right? A lot of us live in places where we have a lot of privilege. And so the tendency when we have a lot of privilege and things work out really well for us is that we don't stop to think about the things that are going well, that you have a roof over your head, have access to certain skills where you can meet your own needs. And even though you may not have everything the way you want it to look, I believe that really remembering what powerful resources we have is part of being grateful. As an example, if Cancer and Capricorn is in your 5th house of romance, children, creative expressions, and the 11th house of hopes, dreams, and professional affiliations, perhaps you're someone who never runs out of creative ideas. Perhaps you never had to make concerted efforts to connect with colleagues because they're naturally drawn to you, and you tend to constellate a group of people who admire and respect you at work. When this is your reality, it doesn't mean that you don't have to work, right? Because not running out of creative ideas doesn't mean that you don't have to actually put in the time and effort to build out your creative projects. The fact that people like you and your colleagues reach out to you without you having to make a lot of effort, it doesn't mean that you don't run into issues later down the road, or that other people don't place unrealistic expectations on you. But it does mean that until you experience challenges like running into a writer's block, or finding yourself in an industry where you're constantly butting heads with other people, you may not even realize that what you've got going on is really beautiful. So I invite you to really pay attention to the themes of luck and effort. So moving on, between the 15th and the 23rd, we have Venus in Capricorn sextiling Saturn in Pisces, and then Neptune, which is also in Pisces, and trining Uranus in Taurus. And then subsequently, the Sun, Mercury, and Mars, again, all of the personal planets, will also be making this transit to Saturn, Neptune, and Uranus. And somewhere in the middle of that period of time between the 15th and the 23rd there, on the 18th, we have a new moon in Capricorn, and Mercury and Mars conjoining each other. So in 2026, Saturn and Neptune will move into Aries, and Uranus will move into Gemini. Saturn and Neptune will permanently leave Pisces for a while, and Uranus will permanently leave Taurus. I say permanent, but what I really mean is in the medium term, right? So this is one of the last times that we'll be experiencing this configuration. The personal planets making an aspect to these 3 planets, Saturn, Uranus, and Neptune, will highlight themes of each of these planets. This could be a great time to reflect on what this period of Saturn in Pisces, Neptune in Pisces, and Uranus in Taurus, basically since March 2023, has brought in your life for you. I want to read to you a passage from this book by Ren Butler, The Archetypal Universe, that I really love to reference when it comes to looking at planetary configurations. So this is specifically about Saturn, Neptune, Uranus aspects and the themes that they can bring forth when they're present. On the one end of the spectrum, grounded idealism, practical and inspired compassion, an awareness of the spiritually liberating effect of facing unconscious pain, adoption of a voluntary and satisfying simplicity, the disillusionment that precedes rebirth. And on the other side of the spectrum, the sudden interruption of peaceful or nourishing situations, feelings of lost security or innocence, ideological rigidity or extremism, wistful New Age ideals that deny the importance of facing one's buried traumas. So I'm curious if this is resonating with you at all, if you've been noticing it in your life. You may want to reflect on which of these themes have been coming up for you in the past 3 years, and what have you learned about your own spiritual path and what it is that you're specifically called towards in this lifetime through the lens of the last 3 years? Are there practices, perspectives, or teachings that you're being called to lean upon more deeply at this time? And also, are there practices that you're ready to let go of that may have served their function at the time, but is now no longer useful or relevant? And finally, the month will end with some intense Aquarius energies. Between the 17th and the 23rd, all the personal planets enter Aquarius, pretty much one after the other, with very little gap, and then they all make conjunctions with Pluto in Aquarius. On the most obvious level, we have a shift in the flavor of the energy when we move from so many planets being in Capricorn to Aquarius. Capricorn is a cardinal earth sign, so Capricorn is concerned primarily with making moves and creating pathways that provide stability, that provide a sense of grounding, and that we can sustainably build upon. Whereas Aquarius is a fixed earth sign. So the focus for Aquarius will be on philosophy, on societal structure, both on a macro level, like on a government and legislation level, but also on a cultural level, which is really an aggregation of habits and ways of interacting that hold a group of people together. So Pluto being in Aquarius, as these personal planets enter Aquarius, will also influence the kinds of questions that we explore as we enter Aquarius season. I want to write more extensively on this, so I'll save this for a Substack piece that I'm currently working on. I encourage you to check out Substack for when that will be available. In the meantime, if you want to go deeper on the signification of Pluto and all these other planets entering Aquarius, I encourage you to listen to my conversation with Verena Borel on episode 48, I believe, where we discussed this transit at length when Pluto first started to enter Aquarius. Another thing that I would like to bring in here is it's important to remember that all these planets being in Capricorn and Aquarius is going to be answering to Saturn in Pisces. Traditionally, Saturn rules Capricorn and Aquarius. Saturn in Pisces is playing an important role, especially in the background, all throughout January 2026. And my sense is that the themes that Saturn and Pisces bring forth will be coming through in a really supportive role way. A lot of what is coming up, especially in the area of our emotional experiences, our collective unconscious, and also obviously personal unconscious, will be related to the themes of Saturn in Pisces, which are grief, loss, unmasking, meaning defense mechanisms that no longer work for us, a loss of the will of our ego to maintain a kind of performative structure to ensure our survival, the theme of dreams and what it means to really step into our dreams and what matters to us, making our dreams a reality, and what it means to truly nourish the dreams that matter to us are going to be relevant. The idea of the collective and the ancestral energies impacting what it is that we believe is possible and accessible to us by way of dreams. The theme of spiritual discipline and devotion, the theme of resting as being as important as making moves in terms of achieving our goals, the idea of participating in constructed realities are also present here. To me, Saturn in Pisces has brought about a lot of themes around whose reality am I currently perpetuating through my action, through the decisions that I make in my life? Do I want to take that further? Is there any creative agency I have that I can exercise as I move through this period of time? Communal boundaries and sovereignty is also another theme that comes up with Saturn in Pisces. The process of waking up to community Kool-Aids that a lot of people naturally drink when they're on the path of healing their relationship to community, and recognizing what our responsibilities are in keeping clean communal psychic waters. You may want to also revisit the episode that I did with Sabrina Monarch and Erin Tax Shipley, where the three of us explore the themes of Saturn and Pisces, if you want to go deeper on this. All right, that's it. That's all that I have for you. I hope this has been helpful for you. I hope this gives you some pointers and reminders and guidance as you move through the month. And again, if any of you would like to get a reading, I would like to work with you. There are a couple ways that I work with people. The first one is you can work with me on a single session basis, where we get together for a live one-on-one session and we talk about your chart. We talk about what's coming up for you in the coming year. We can also bring in human design if that's a lens that you would like to explore. I find that human design is very helpful for strategic planning and for making decisions, especially decisions that are already in your reality now. And really discerning, is the pressure to do something about this coming from me, coming from something that's true for me, or is it coming from external pressure or conditioning? If you do go the single session route, you'll also have access to me for 7 days afterwards, where you can ask me any questions that you may still have, and we can integrate the work that we do together during that session. The other option is a complete deep dive. I work with people within a mentorship container that lasts for 3 months. Throughout 2025, this has just been the thing that I love the most doing. It's so satisfying to do this work with people who are really interested in going deeper in the expansion of their consciousness. And during this mentorship, what I found to be the case is we really work on choosing the version of you that makes the goals or the dreams that you have inevitable. We step outside of the constraint of time, which can sometimes be helpful, but a lot of the times what I found is when people put too much pressure on certain dreams happening within certain timelines, what tends to happen in the long run is they ended up not achieving their dreams, because time is non-linear and time works in such a way that what you need to do actually is to build momentum, right? And building momentum can take a lot of energy at the start. And so what this mentorship really does is we co-create a stable field where you can choose the version of you that you want to be. And we can bring in the influence of your chart, guidance from your human design, and also energy tools and practices so that you can feel resourced and continuing to choose this version of yourself. And as you do the daily work of continuing to choose that version of yourself, inevitably you open up a portal to a new reality of who you know yourself to be on a deeper level. Actually, what it is not, you're not creating anything new. You're simply remembering who you've always been on an essential deeper level. But sometimes all of us can really use expanders. We can use guides. We can use facilitators to help us serve as reflections in places where we easily can go into the habitual. We can easily shift into what's familiar for us, which then perpetuates what we've already seen, what is no longer giving us that satisfaction, that peace, that recognition, that surprise that we're really looking for. Okay, so if any of those offerings are interesting to you, I would love to work with you. If you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me. You know where to find me. If you have enjoyed this episode, I would love for you to leave a review on Apple Podcasts, or leave a comment if you would like, if you have some questions or musings. If you feel resonance, I'd love to hear your experience. You can also share this podcast with people in your life, people in your communities. And finally, check out the new Substack. And currently, it's not yet super populated, but it will be very soon because I'm committing to this project. All right. I'm sending you all so much love, and I hope you take exquisite care of yourselves throughout the month.